The Boston Celtics are inching closer to the start of the NBA season, and with just over a month left before the first tip-off, the buzz around the team is heating up. While most of the headlines recently have been about injuries, young talent, and off-season development, a new name has started to creep back into the conversation: Russell Westbrook. That's right, Russ, the Energizer Bunny of the NBA, is once again being linked to Boston, and while the idea might sound wild at first, there's actually more to it than meets the eye. Now, let's make one thing clear. This isn't about turning the Celtics into a championship juggernaut overnight by bringing in a veteran like Westbrook. At this stage in his career, Russ isn't that guy anymore. He's not the triple-double machine who once carried entire franchises on his back. But what he still brings is energy, intensity, and a motor that doesn't quit. The idea being floated is that he could anchor the second unit, come off the bench, and become that spark plug scorer and playmaker for about 20 minutes a game. And honestly, there's a case to be made for that, especially when you look at how thin Boston's bench could be in terms of consistent offensive production. Last season, Russ played 75 games with the Denver Nuggets, putting up 13 points, nearly 5 boards, and 6 assists per game, all while shooting 44% from the field. His three-point shooting still leaves much to be desired at just 32%, and his free throws were as shaky as ever at 66%, but he also averaged over a steal per game and half a block, showing he's still engaged on both ends of the floor. What's more surprising is that he finished 7th in Sixth Man of the Year voting, which, given the depth of competition in his role, is nothing to ignore. He logged about 28 minutes per game, which might have been a little high due to injuries in Denver, but it shows he can still handle a decent workload. And here's the thing. The fit in Boston is not as far-fetched as it sounds. The Celtics currently have a roster spot open. Westbrook could be signed on a veteran minimum deal, which is low risk financially, and it doesn't lock Boston into any long-term commitment. If the experiment doesn't work out, you move on. But if it does, you suddenly have a guy who can run the second unit, push the pace, get others involved, and even take over stretches offensively without burdening your starters. There's value in that, especially when you're trying to figure out what pieces around the core of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are going to stick for the long haul. Of course, this entire scenario depends on one big factor. Does Westbrook even want to come to Boston? That's where things get murky. Reports earlier in the offseason suggested that Russ had a strong preference to stay out west, with Sacramento emerging as a possible destination. The Kings, dysfunctional or not, were reportedly looking to shed Malik Monk's contract and bring in a veteran point guard like Westbrook to solidify their rotation. But if that move doesn't materialize, and if Westbrook isn't finding the market he expected, maybe a short-term deal with Boston becomes more appealing. After all, playing in the East on a high-visibility team and showing you can still impact winning, that's a good way to boost your value heading into the twilight of your career. And let's look at the potential depth chart if Boston went that route. Assuming a starting 5 of Neemias Queta at center, Chris Boucher at the 4, Derek White and Jaylen Brown in the backcourt, and Peyton Pritchard sliding into that 5th spot, the bench suddenly starts to look a bit more intriguing if you add Westbrook. Imagine a second unit featuring Russ, Anthony Simons, Sam Hauser providing floor spacing, and young wings like Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, and Hugo Gonzalez bringing energy and length. That's a group that can run, shoot, and play with tempo. It may not be elite, but it could be competitive, especially in the regular season grind. Now, if the Celtics are more focused on development and positioning themselves for a stronger draft pick, then bringing in Westbrook probably doesn't make much sense. In that case, you want to give more minutes to young guys, see who can evolve, and maybe even sign a veteran who's content playing a mentor role rather than demanding touches and playing time. Russ, for all his strengths, isn't wired that way. He wants to play. He wants to contribute. He wants to prove he still belongs. And that's perfectly fine. It just has to align with what Boston is trying to do. But here's what makes this situation even more interesting. Westbrook's stint in Denver actually worked better than many expected. Sure, there were rumors about tension with Aaron Gordon during the playoffs, but on the floor, Russ found ways to be effective. His cutting, slashing, and passing opened things up, especially when paired with a high IQ big like Nikola Jokic. And while Boston doesn't have a Jokic-type player, they do have guys who move off the ball, who can hit shots, and who can benefit from a guy pushing the tempo in transition. If Russ can accept a role that's about bringing juice to the second unit and not about being the guy, then maybe, just maybe, there's something here. Also, let's not pretend the East is wide open. Milwaukee and Philly are still strong, Miami is lurking, and New York is coming up. Boston doesn't have a margin for error to sit back and see what happens. They need to compete. They need to figure out who they are. And part of that is testing out options, seeing what clicks, and not being afraid to take swings, even if it's just a one-year flyer on a former MVP. Of course, all of this Westbrook talk is just part of a bigger picture. The Celtics are clearly still tinkering. Simons is still being dangled in trade rumors. There's talk about potential salary dumps to get under the luxury tax line. Brooklyn and Utah have both been mentioned as possible trade partners. The Jazz, for example, could help Boston shed some salary by taking on Simons in exchange for someone like Jusuf Nurkic. Brooklyn, on the other hand, has enough cap space to be a viable landing spot if Boston wants to clean house a bit. But the front office has made it clear they're not going to attach assets just to save money. If they make a move, it has to make sense on the court. And as for the younger guys on the roster, this season is going to be huge for them. Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, Hugo Gonzalez, and even Luka Garza, they all have a shot to carve out roles. Gonzalez, especially, is someone to watch. The international experience he brings from Real Madrid, the way he cuts, defends, makes smart plays, it's all stuff that fits beautifully in a rotation centered around Tatum and Brown. Whether that translates to NBA success remains to be seen, but the upside is real. Jordan Walsh, in particular, is entering a pivotal year. It's year 3, and Boston needs to see if he's more than just a defensive project. Can he hit shots consistently? Can he create a bit off the bounce? If so, that changes the calculus for what this team can do moving forward. And that's the underlying theme for Boston right now, evaluation. The Celtics are in a bit of a transition year. Not a rebuild, not a full-on reset, but a year where they need to get real answers about what this roster looks like around their 2 stars. Who can contribute? Who's ready now? Who's a year away? Who's just not part of the future? Bringing in someone like Westbrook could complicate that, or it could help answer those questions more clearly. Either way, the clock is ticking. Training camp is around the corner. And for a team that came so close to the mountaintop, this season might be less about banners and more about building the foundation for the next real run. While the Westbrook rumors have stirred plenty of debate, there's another situation that's quietly turning into one of the wildest stories of the offseason: the ongoing drama between Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors. And somehow, this messy breakup that's brewing out west might have ripple effects all across the league, including teams like the Celtics who are watching closely to see what shakes loose before the season tips off. So here we are, in the middle of September, with the Warriors still unable to make a clear decision on Kuminga's future. The tension has been bubbling under the surface for a while now, but things are starting to spill over. Reports are coming out fast, leaks from both sides, and the picture is getting clearer. Kuminga wants more money, more of a role, more clarity. And the Warriors? They're stuck between 2 tough options. Keep him on the roster even though they clearly don't see him as a long-term fit, or sign him just so they can trade him and try to get some value back. It's classic NBA business. Everyone pretending to still like each other until the paperwork is signed. The funny thing is, the Warriors were once viewed as this gold standard of front office excellence and internal development. But now, it's chaos. Between juggling massive contracts, aging stars, and a bloated payroll, they're at the edge of their dynasty's expiration date. The Kuminga saga feels like the kind of messy, slow-motion collapse you'd expect from a franchise that's run out of options and time. And it's not just about Kuminga. You've got veteran voices like Al Horford sitting on the sidelines, waiting for the call, wondering if they'll get looped into some late September shakeup. Boston fans still hold Al in high regard, and the door always feels slightly open for a return. But as of now, there's no word, just uncertainty. To make things even more chaotic, Jimmy Butler's camp reportedly reached out to the Warriors' front office to check in on what's going on. And that's the last thing Golden State needs right now. Jimmy Butler in the mix, possibly sniffing around for a new situation or trying to play matchmaker from behind the scenes. We've seen what happens when Jimmy gets involved in team dynamics. Just ask Minnesota or Miami. So if he's poking around Golden State's business, it's not just smoke. It's a four-alarm fire. All of this drama with Kuminga and the Warriors is the kind of thing that a team like Boston should be watching like a hawk. Not necessarily because they'll get involved directly, but because this is the time of year when teams make panic trades, hasty decisions, or unexpected moves just to reset the mood in their locker rooms. And if that happens, someone useful might shake loose. A veteran big, a rotation wing, even a future draft asset. For a Celtics team that's still balancing between developing youth and staying competitive, those are the types of opportunities you keep the phone charged for. Now, zooming back into Boston for a second, one of the key questions floating around is what happens with Anthony Simons. Simons is a talented scorer, no doubt about it. And when he's hot, he can fill it up with the best of them. But he's also on an expiring deal, and with the way the salary cap is looking, there's a real chance the Celtics won't be able or willing to pay him what he's going to want next summer. That puts him in a tough spot. If he plays well this year, his value rises, but so does the asking price for any team that wants to trade for him. Everyone knows Boston's cap situation. Everyone knows they'll have to make a decision by the trade deadline. So it's not like they have a ton of leverage. If Simons ends up being moved for something like 2 second-round picks, some fans are going to be furious. But it's just the math. When you're holding an expiring contract and no guarantee of re-signing the player, you don't get a king's ransom. That's just not how the league works. You're trading a rental. And unless another team is really confident they can extend Simons or is desperate for scoring help for a playoff push, the return is always going to feel underwhelming. On the flip side, if the Celtics are actually open to keeping Simons long-term, it'll come down to what he's willing to accept. If he's cool with coming off the bench, playing 25 minutes a night, and taking something like $15 million a year, that's a different conversation. That's a role that can make sense for both sides. But if he's looking for $25 million a year and a starting role, that's not happening in Boston, especially not with guys like Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, and Jaylen Brown already in the mix. There just aren't enough minutes or shots to go around. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The Eastern Conference just got a shakeup that no one saw coming. Rumors have been swirling all morning, and sources now claim that Steven Adams, the towering center known for his unyielding presence in the paint, has reportedly agreed to a deal with the Boston Celtics. If true, this move could dramatically alter the landscape of the East, giving Boston a defensive anchor that opponents will have to reckon with night after night. Adams, who has built a reputation as one of the league's most durable and physical big men, could bring a new level of toughness and rim protection to a Celtic squad that has been searching for consistency in the paint. Over his career, he's been a game-changer on defense, a master of screens, and an underrated passer from the post. His arrival could free up the perimeter stars, allowing Boston's sharpshooters to operate with more space, while Adams patrols the lane like a brick wall that refuses to budge. Insiders suggest that the deal is structured to give Adams flexibility while strengthening Boston's frontcourt rotation. The Celtics locker room, already buzzing with excitement over the rumored addition, reportedly sees Adams as more than just a player. He's a personality that could galvanize the team. Imagine Marcus Smart orchestrating perimeter defense while Adams commands the paint, creating a dual-layered fortress that could intimidate even the fiercest Eastern rivals. Of course, nothing is official yet, and sources caution that negotiations can be fluid. Still, if this rumor holds, the ripple effects could be massive. Teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, Philadelphia 76ers, and Miami Heat may need to rethink their strategies entirely. The Celtics, long admired for their balanced approach and depth, could suddenly have an edge in matchups that previously seemed even. Analysts are already speculating that Adams' presence might transform Boston from a strong contender into a legitimate favorite to reach the finals. Fans are naturally taking to social media, flooding timelines with speculation, memes, and debates about what this means for the rest of the season. Could this be the missing piece Boston has been searching for? Only time will tell, but the chatter is undeniable. The Eastern Conference just trembled, and Steven Adams might be at the heart of the quake. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.